Hey everybody, so I thought I'd do another video. This one was kind of tricky because I couldn't find one that existed, so I had to kind of write it. And what we're looking at is taking, let me pull up a notepad. We're taking a REST data, okay, and we're going to save that REST data to a CSV, okay. Now, it got kind of tricky because there was no easy way to transform your REST data into the actual CSV model, okay, if that makes sense. So if you think about the CSV, you got like column one could be like ID, name, date of birth, hobby, right? And so that would be 1, comma, Tim, not telling you, blah, and well, I don't really care, right? So 0, 3, 21, you know, 70 something. I'm not going to give you that because it's internet, right? It's kind of PII data. And then hobby is I play guitar. Okay, so that is a CSV, what it looks like. But with saying that, when you think about the REST data itself, it's coming from some source. In this case, we're doing a get method to pull the data down, but then we got to get to a CSV. So what I did was actually create a data table to make that happen, to kind of marriage in between. The problem with the data table is there's no create data table that I can find, okay? And this may be something that maybe I've missed, so this is my solution. It may not be your solution or the correct way to do it, but to create there is a control over here for a CSV to data table. So we're gonna look at that. And that's what I used. So I created this temporary CSV file. I created the data table from that temporary CSV file, and then I used that data table to hold that REST data. Okay, so let's look at that. So here, and I like to put things in order, so we'll do a best practice Javelin video soon. But right here, these are flows, right? So I like to put things in order of objects so they're easy to maintain. So separation of concerns if you're a developer. So the first thing I'm going to do is create JSON template from data. Now this is the one that's doing all the load. So I'm going to first do a delete action. This is a file action. So if you go down to your file system, it's the file operation, okay? And if you notice my path, I use variables for my paths, especially if they're going to be used more than once. That one doesn't need to be there, especially if it needs to be done more than once. But in that case, for an example, notice it's saving at the root of wherever this is going to run. Okay, so I don't care where it's going to run, it's going to save it at the root. Now in my case, I'm running in my temp directory, like most things, and it just makes it easy. So we're going to delete just to make sure it's not there, and we're throw an error if file not exists. Do not throw an error because it means it's not there. Don't really care, just bypass it. But if it is there, remove it so we get a fresh one. Okay, the next one is create. Okay, now again, I want to create that file. If it doesn't exist, my path is there. Okay. And then the last one is append. So here, I do want you to throw an error. That's what I was looking at. Because if it's not there, then you can't do anything, right? Now, the one thing I did was I hard-coded my columns. Now, you can change that. So what I'm doing, I'm not really creating, when people think of CSV, they think of Excel or, some kind of spreadsheet. But the truth is, the CSV really is a text file. It's a comma delimited text file. So that's what we're creating. So I'm creating a comma delimiter first column, which is going to be an empty CSV. I also, if you notice to my CSV, path to CSV, I'm saving it as a CSV, okay? So that's going to create those empty columns. Now we'll talk about where I got those columns from shortly, okay? But that's this one's kind of the magic of it. And then what I do is I read that CSV into this empty fake data table. Well, it's not fake, I'm going to use it. But this data table is empty. But what that's doing is creating that data table. Now, I do plan to do a video on data tables because it's so massive of what you can do with them. They're so cool. The problem is I never could find and create empty one. So, which in this case, getting the data from the JSON, I'm bringing data to a CSV that doesn't exist yet. So therefore, I have to create it. And then I delete the CSV file because I don't need it anymore. I created my data table and we're done. And that's kind of the magic of this. So the next thing I do is I get the data. Okay, so I'm going to reach out and I'm going to grab this data. Now, I just did a video on how to do a post method. So if you need to do one on a post, please check it out. But we're going to use this little thing right here and I'm going to pull this data down. I also did another video on how to pull this data into a database, right, like Microsoft SQL. But in this case, what we're doing, we're putting it into a CSV file. But here's my columns: user ID, ID, title, and body. So if you went back and you looked at that from the original one right here, and if we go here, and if I click here, this is going to match this, right? So user ID, ID, title, and body. So I'm just going to dump that data straight in there. Now, if I go back to here, we're getting it. I'm writing it out so I can see if it came through. I'm looping through it, and I'm setting each one of these to be a return. Well, I guess I should, let me back it up. Whenever I get this data, I have two things that I'm using, right? A J object and a J array. I should name these better. This was back when I was doing employees. So it ended up being imp, but that's okay. I think I got the video for that. And notice my scope doesn't go any higher than here because I don't need it to go any higher. But what's saying that my imps is going to be a J array, my imp is going to be an object. Again, those were for employees. I probably could just call it J array and J data. I don't know, who cares? But if you look down here at the bottom, that's where my rest return is a J array, which is imps. It's plural, and my J object is singular because it's just one blob, right? Now, so I'm writing out my J array, and that way I can see what it is. And then I'm actually looping through it. So the truth is I'm not even using, I could delete the J object because I'm not even using it, but that's okay. So we're going to loop through these. Okay, again, these are coming from my, it's the J token that's coming from here, and I have videos out there that show you how to create that, so I don't want to waste time doing it here. And each one of these, as I'm looping through it, I'm saying, okay, now select the token, because if you know JSON, that's how it works. This is J object, very well known in Microsoft, right? But each one of these are just variables that I'm assigning data to, and you can see them down here as well. So item select user, I like using the names. You could use the arrays if you wanted to, but then if my data changed, it would mess up. And then once that gets done, then I do this cool little insert row, little control here, and it's over here somewhere in the data table invoke method control. You'd have to find it. It's probably in bulk copy, I think, maybe. But anyway, yeah, I think it's this one. Could be wrong. Nope, not that one. Anyway, you'd have to find it. It is, it's over there, I promise you. But it's invoke method. But in the invoke method is kind of where a lot of the magic is happening. So here we're doing a loop. We're looping through each item. We're setting it to our values. And then we're taking those values and we're going to insert those into the table that we created from our blank CSV. Now, I can't spread this out, but it's our table name dot row. Okay? Our rows, right? Tomato, tomato, but you'd want to make sure that's right. But if I look over here, and if I look at my parameters, I'm sorry, I can see that my end is a string of array, and I'm passing in those variables as an array, which is kind of like a JSON array, right? So therefore, these are in order based off that CSV. And that's how that kind of works. And then my target object is going to be my rows, right? And you can just look that up, datatable.rows. And that's it. So that's the insert method. Now, again, I want to do a video on these things, data tables, because there's so much you can do with them. All right, so then we go back up. The last thing I want to do, now what we've done, we've got our data. We brought our data down to a data table, or to a, we created a fake CSV to create the data table, to load the data table with the JSON data from our API, and then now we just need to save it to a database, and that's pretty easy. I'm going to check again. It's always good habit to check to make sure that file exists, right? So I'm going to make sure if it is, I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to create it, and then I'm going to pin to it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, I don't think I need that pin. I don't. It's just duplicating. So we can get rid of this one. Let's just be safe because I don't want to make a mistake. I'm not sure why I put that there because I don't need that there. I think I copied it from the first one and it just came over. So if I go down to here, there we go. Because what this is doing, once that file is created, okay, we're just going to dump this data, and we'll see because maybe I do need it back. Those were just the columns, but again, I did that in my first call. So this CSV doesn't really exist. So we're going to create it. We're going to make sure it isn't there. Then we're going to create a blank CSV called output data. And then from there, what we're going to do is we're going to dump our, I was thinking, I don't even think I need to create. It may create it automatically, but that's okay. But then what we're going to do is we're going to export our data. This is the export data table activity to CSV. And I know that's over here as well. But once that happens, I hate that I probably should have spent the time to find these for you, but you can find them too. My in element is going to be my data table. And see, right headers is true. That's why I don't need that one. And then my file path is going to be the CSV file. And I was looking to see if it was a create. I don't know if it creates it by nature. I do want to delete it so I can get a fresh one. And then make sure it's there. That's what that can do. And it works, so it's fine. But let's just see what happens. So we're going to save it. And we're going to go back to the top just so we can see it. And we'll go. And now it's looping through the data, right? It's writing the data to our data table. So it hasn't created the output yet. Okay, so the output should be here. So we'll put that there so we can see it happen. Okay, it's complete. Happened really fast. And here's our output. And that's it. So there's our user ID, our title, and our body. Okay, awesome. How cool is that? So now if I go back over here, I can say user ID, title, and body. So just like that, we took our JSON data and we put it to a CSV file. And again, CSV doesn't mean Excel. It's just easy to see it in Excel. CSV really is just a tab delimited note piece of paper, right? Notepad. So that's just really hard to read. So most people don't do it that way. Now, with saying that, if you need to go to a database, I do have a video out there for that. If you want to know more about how to use this call, I have videos out there on using the REST activity call. That's not it. I'm sorry. It should be in here. This one. I have videos out there on how to use that, including how to do post. But just to recap real quick, we're just hitting the URL, straightforward. This is just the name that goes here. This is the method, which is get is JSON. It's true because we're bringing back JSON. Resource has to be blank, or you have to have something in there. That's why you put double quotes. And my return values are here. Again, I'm not using the J object, so I could delete it, but it's there anyway. So I hope this was helpful. Again, the whole concept of this is going from a JSON to a CSV file using Javelin. Thank you.